Opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to this week's edition of Opinions, Yours, Mine, or with your host, Lon Smith. To voice your opinion, call into the program at 888-721-0074. Now, here's your host.
Blessings and greetings to you. Welcome to this week's edition of Opinions. I'm your host, Lon Smith, and happy to be with you again this Saturday from beautiful Boca Raton in sunny South Florida. Our mission is to share opinions, facts, and to get the truth that will inform and encourage you, our listeners. I sincerely trust that we will accomplish this and have accomplished this with our program throughout the months. Bottom line, look into the Word. Claim it. That settles it. Now, for a little sweet and sour note, if we might, this week's edition of Opinions is our last broadcast. I have enjoyed our weekly get-togethers, and thank you for tuning in. I will be undergoing a series of daily radiation treatments due to a little bit of the aggressive little C. I call it the little C because I got the big C, Christ, working on it, and he wins. And going through this, I know my productive hours will be limited, and my focus will be on health and the Christian Business Directory, which is celebrating 30 years in 2018. You might take a look at it. Go to our site and take a peek. It's the Christian Business Directory.online, and use it if our providers are in your area. And allow me to say this with full confidence. God is my healer through Christ. Now that we, as Christians, must understand something about God's healing, and it's that he may heal by the way of allowing us to remain here on earth and in my case, with my wonderful family and friends, or he may heal me completely by taking me home to be with him. You see, I'm in a win-win situation, and I want my listeners to know that, because there's more to life than here on earth. There's eternity, and the big question is, where will you spend it? That's the most serious question you can ask yourself, and make sure you have the right answer. And I might say, I'm a little curious. I want to stay around as long as I can and be with my family and friends. I've got the greatest family in the world. They bring joy to my whole life. Just the thoughts about them make me smile. And so I want to stick around, but I must say I am not fearful of death, and I am curious because I have read so much about it. It's going to be good. And I hope when it comes your time to make the departure from this earth, that I will see you there. If I do predecease you, see you there. Now, okay, let's move on to another bright thought. This week that is coming up, we celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day. The purpose of Independence Day is to commemorate the Declaration of Independence, and it will be on July 4. Now, here's something you may not know, and then again, maybe you do. John Adams predicted in a letter to his wife Abigail that Americans would celebrate their Independence Day on July 2nd. He was off by 2 days, not too bad for government work. On July 2nd, Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, signed only by Charles Thompson, the acting Secretary of Congress at that time, and John Hancock, the presiding officer. 2 days later, Congress approved the revised version and ordered it to be printed and distributed to the states and military officers. The other signatures would follow. As Americans, we have a lot to be thankful for, not just on 4th of July or Memorial Day or a particular celebratory day, but every day of the week. We have an obligation to thank our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Yeshua, the only begotten Son of God, Jesus. So wake up, America. Be thankful and be busy about your Father's work, which part of it is to pray for America, pray for the world, pray for the lost, pray for the leaders, and that they will learn to get along. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Well, welcome back to Opinions. We've got two guests today, and one is in Pittsburgh and the other is in the studio. We have Brad Pitt in Pittsburgh. Brad, say hello to the audience.
I'm not quite as good looking as Brad Pitt, but Brad...
Well, your morals may be much more beautiful. But we're glad to have you, Brad. Did I say Brad Pitt by any chance? Brad Schiff is what I meant. Schiff. I guess I was thinking about in the pits with Brad, huh? But Brad, excuse me for that. We're delighted to have you. And just say hello to the listeners for a moment.
Well, I do say hello. I appreciate the honor of being on your last show. And that opening was beautiful and meaningful.
Hey, praise
really
God
awesome.
for that. And also along with Brad, that we'll be talking to shortly, we have Oksana Horton. And we'll be introducing her in just a moment. But, Brad, we're going to, being that you're up in Pittsburgh and on the phone, et cetera, we're going to go ahead and deal you in first. And let's talk about a few things. Brad is the author of a very unique book. His book can be obtained at Amazon. You can Google Brad Schiff, Schiff, and procure his book. And it's very unique, and it's provocative, and I think it's a book to make you think. The title of the book by Brad Schiff is God is Great, but His People Suck. There's a lot of meaning into that. You know, we as Christians need to look inward. And as I have spoken in the last few weeks, our black brothers need to look inward, and we white brothers need to look inward to see what we can do to make better relations between the black, the white, any different group of people that are not just like we are. God loves us all, and we need to be bridge builders. And a good thing to think about, a better thing to do, join the construction team and not the wrecking crew. If you're living with hatred in your heart and not the love of Jesus Christ, you are destroying yourself, because the cauldron that holds the venom and the acid of hatred eats itself. So, come on, let's put down the hatred, pick up the band of love, and start doing for one another and quit fighting. But Brad, in your book, God is Great, but His People Suck. Your first chapter, in fact, everyone should go out and get that book and read it. But your first chapter, there is what caught my eye. And before I say what caught my eye, let me just also say that Brad is a numismatist and a stamp dealer and the author as well. And he has an unusual mind, I have to say. And God has created us all to be unique, uniquely His. And if you'll just listen for a little bit, I think you'll enjoy the unpredictable wild ride that we might see in Brad's pursuits. Today, the topic, like I said, is taken from chapter 1 in Brad's book. And I love the title, Brad. God is great, but his people suck, because when we start looking inward, we can improve ourselves. And your first chapter, the title is, I Don't Like Christians. Now, we could take the first 3 words and leave the last word out of it, and it could be changed into something else, which might be, I hate. And that is not what we're all about. But Brad, could you pick up on the story, true story, I might say, about I Don't Like Christians? Tell us about it.
Sure. Yeah, that's the first chapter. And in it, the second paragraph, I say, I'm reading now, I must confess that I generally don't like Christians, which immediately presents a problem. I am one.
That's what you told the person that told you that, huh?
That's right. Yeah, well, his language was much more savory than mine. He threw a few choice words in there. But generally speaking, I'm saying that to be provocative. I know that there are Christians that would put me to shame, and I look up to. I'm not saying this as a carte blanche, one size fits all statement. I'm saying it in the same regard that Jesus said in Matthew 23, where he addressed the Pharisees of that time. And I can get into that later, but that's the general theme of the first chapter.
Right. It must have taken him aback a little bit when he said, I don't like Christians, and you announced that you are one. Now, does God share that same sentiment?
Well, this is the interesting part about it. The short answer is yes. Early on in the Bible, in Genesis 6:6, he says, quote, the Lord says that he was sorry that he made man on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. And Jesus, referencing Matthew 12:30, said, whoever is not with me is against me. He is also highly critical of people in the Bible and those who claim the truth, but are judgmental hypocrites, as he called them. In Matthew 23:3, this is all the things that he called the religious people of the time. He said that they were blind guides, fools, hypocrites, whitewashed tombs, full of all uncleanliness, outwardly righteous, but full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. They were murderers, and they were a brood of vipers. And if they kept going, he asked at the very end, how would they escape being sentenced to hell?
I wonder what the Amharic word for suck is, and how God would have said it through Jesus back in those days. But that's a very interesting thought. And, God even says, he calls us stupid. When you read in Matthew, I think it is, that he said the children of darkness are wiser than the children of light. And it shouldn't be. But we don't call on the power that we have. But I guess we do give the world around us, and even those that are within the Christian world, reasons to really not like us, and they question our Christianity many times.
Yeah, rightfully, because we're not good representatives of what we're claiming.
Well, we got a lot of work to do, and thank goodness God's not through with us yet, but he wants some sincerity coming from his people and obedience. Brad, let me ask you, why does the secular public so readily agree with this statement of not liking Christians, and they hardly agree with that? What's your take on that?
The short answer is we are not loving properly. We are not patient. We are typically not kind. We're judgmental, even though in the verse on love, 1 Corinthians 13:4-8, it says that we should not insist on our own way, and we really don't need to. If we have the truth in us, people would want that. We wouldn't need to insist that they believe what we believe. They'd be dying to find out more of what we believe if we're living a truly glorified life. And we are showing people that we were set free. In fact, it's interesting that your freedom opening, God gave us that freedom, and He gave us a freedom to actually use our own free will to defy Him.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty spectacular.
Well, His word says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And
yeah. James 1:25, the law of liberty.
Right. It just keeps penetrating my thought process that, oh my goodness, there's so much work left to be done on each of us, and not for me to do the work on my friends, but that I allow God to do that work on me. Well, we've got a little break here. We're going to come back for just a few more minutes, and hang on, Brad, and we'll be right back. This is Lon Smith, along with Brad and Oksana with Opinions. Welcome back to this week's edition, and I might say the last edition of Opinions. Next week, you will be listening to Beverly Kennedy, who will be on from 6 to 8 o'clock, I believe. And so stay tuned with her programming that follows this program today, and she'll give you the update on her extended timing when she comes on following this program. We're talking to Brad Schiff from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's not the state of brotherly love, but you live pretty near the city of brotherly love, and I hope there's a lot of love going on up there in that state, Brad. You know, as I think on the statement that people might say that I don't like Christians, do you think you have an equal amount of the population of Christian and non-Christian making that same statement?
I would say that the majority of the world would say that they do not like Christians. Even though Christians have done a great deal for the world, unrecognized to a great degree through mission work and prayers. But yeah, I would say, unfortunately, I think that the majority of Christians, I mean, God gives us plenty of warnings. He said, if you don't love my people properly, there's a couple verses. I will read them to you. I wrote them down. One says, God warns Christians who claim His name, but don't show the deeds, such as Revelations 3:16, which says, because you are lukewarm, I will chew you up and I will spit you out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what God thinks of Christians. And I think that the rest of the world sees Christians in that way. We're pretty ignorant to His word. We should know His word, and we should be able to defend it adequately. And if we can't, that's when we're mocked. People say, see, you don't even know what you're talking about. You place your faith in this higher supposed being, and yet you don't know what His own words say. And that's to our shame. They're right in that. We need to know that His word. We need to defend it.
Well, I guess there's a lot we can do. You know, as I encourage the races, whether you're black or white, And again, I'll repeat, I am a racist. I'm for God's human race. Has nothing to do with color. But, we're saying in the community here and there, whomever might be speaking this, saying, I don't like Christians. There's others that are saying, I don't like white people. There's others that saying, I don't like black people, or I don't like Chinese. I don't like something. And it's time that we start looking inward. And a friend of mine said, we need to do outreach, reach out from ourselves to understand. And, I'll tell you, I have never been so impressed by a gentleman that many people know, Charles Krauthammer. Boy, he really emphasized something in some of the remarks that they were playing as a tribute to Charles Krauthammer. And one was where he said, I learned to listen to the other person's opinion before I blabbed mine out to see where they were coming from. He had that unique quality where most of us want to tell the other person exactly what I think, or it's about me. And I think that Charles Krauthammer left a great legacy for reporters, for humans, and I liked what one of his colleagues said, that who was a Christian, I forget his name, said, I look forward to seeing Charles Krauthammer in heaven. May that be so. What a great man. Well, Brad, we're coming to the end of the clock for this segment. Anything else that you would like to share in this particular vein?
Yeah, it kind of ties the two themes together. How you started with this freedom. There is really only one freedom, and it's God. He's the one that sets us free. Christ came down, died for us sacrificially. Galatians 5:1 says, for freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery.
Yes.
1 Peter 2:16 says, live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. And I think so many times we use our freedom as a cover-up for doing things that are wrong as Christians. And then other people see that, and they say hypocrite, rightfully.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop doing this. We need to start living for Christ.
Stop it right now. Hey, Brad, this book is very interesting. God is great, but his people suck. How can we get a copy, Brad?
Again, you said it. It's on Amazon right now. I think it's listed at $14.98. You can type my name into Google. You can type the book title into Google. You'll get there easily. I am going to be starting a YouTube channel and start addressing some of these issues that we're talking about here on the radio.
Super, super. Well, I want to encourage people to get the book, read it, and learn. And Brad, thank you so much for being on our program and sharing your book and the thoughts, and maybe giving us a different way to look as we look out from ourselves, and that it will also teach us to look inward. Brad, thank you much, and until the next time, God bless you and your family.
Thank you. It's my privilege.